Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the NBA 2K roster review. As usual, the roster used in this video is my own personal roster, the Real 2K roster. You can find it by searching Real 2K in the file name or my online ID, Real 2K Insider. So we're going to be going over games from December 27th. There were 10 games. The Dallas Mavericks beat the Clippers by 51 points, 124 to 73. The Pelicans beat the Spurs 98 to 95. The Magic beat the Wizards 120 to 113. The Hornets upset the Nets 106 to 104. The Cavs blew out the Sixers 118 to 94. The Knicks blew out the Bucks 130 to 110. Can't wait to go over that one. The Pacers beat the Celtics 108 to 107. The Warriors beat the Bulls 129 to 128. The Suns beat the Kings 116 to 100. And the Lakers beat the Timberwolves 127 to 91. Okay, so focusing on the Sixers first, not a ton of notes. I haven't really had any notes for this team in the 3 games that they've played. Embiid did not play, which explains the 24-point loss to the Cavs. Dwight Howard started in his place. Pretty standard game, 4-4 from the field. But he had like 3 turnovers, I think, and played like 16 minutes, so medium effectiveness. And nobody really got it going. Part of the problem with building your team around Embiid is, there's only so many offensive centers that you can run it through the post. So when the player misses the game, the team is kind of thrown out of whack because their primary game plan, doesn't exist. Embiid's basically irreplaceable on this team. Especially with the group of bigs that they have. Last year, that actually wasn't the case because they had Al Horford to fill in, but now they don't really have anybody comparable that they could run into in the post. Dwight Howard's not that guy anymore at the age of 35. So that's really my only note for that game. Going over to the Bucks, who lost to the Knicks by 30 somehow. Giannis, he had 27, 13, and 5, 3 steals as well. Chris Middleton, he had 22 points and 5 assists on 8-18 from the field. Bobby Portis, he had a revenge game against the Knicks with 17 points, 7 rebounds on 7-12 from the field, but that was it for the Bucks. Holiday and DiVincenzo, they had quiet nights, and the bench, didn't come through again. DJ Augustine and Bryn Forbes combined for 0 of 10 shooting. And we've touched on this before. The Bucks traded really all of their depth, or had to let it all go in free agency to get Drew Holiday without paying like a crazy amount of luxury tax. So they're gonna have a lot more nights like this where previously they had a good starting unit and a great bench, and now it's like, if everybody isn't firing on all cylinders, it seems like the Bucks are going to struggle a little bit. Oops. All right, so going over to the Bulls, they are 0-3 to start the year as they got beat again. This time, at least, it wasn't a blowout, but that's not too much solace as they did lose to a bad Warriors team at the moment. Zach LaVine, he had 33 points, 11 of 23 from the field. Kobe White, 20 points, 5 assists. 8 of 19 from the field for 7 on threes. Lauri Markkanen, 23 points, 7 rebounds. And Wendell Carter Jr. had 22 points, 13 rebounds, 4 assists. And I think he was like 7 of 8 from the field. So solid all-around night for the starters. 4 players with 20-plus points. But they don't have any depth to speak of, as the bench got outscored 49 to 24 in that game. So over along to the Cavs, who are 3-0 by comparison to start the year. Andre Drummond, he had 24 points, 14 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks. He was 11 of 18 from the field and 2 of 4 from the free throw line. And hey, he didn't take a 3 in this game. That's awesome. He put up numbers against the Sixers team that we just stated was without Joel Embiid. So it's good that hey, they were without Embiid and he wasn't taking threes, so that's a good sign, right? Um, Larry Nance, he actually started this game at small forward as Isaac Okoro was out with a sprained foot. I think he might miss a couple games beyond that as well. But I changed Nance's position to his second position to small forward, which it was previously at center, as the Cavs have a lot more depth at center than in previous years. So I do think that Nance will, on top of them also having Kevin Love as a potential center, I do think that we're probably going to see Nance also play just next to Kevin Love and Andre Drummond. They want to get all three of those guys on the court at the same time. He's too good to not play, Larry Nance is. And as for the guards, Darius Garland, he had 14 points, 7 assists, and I went ahead and boosted his pass ratings as his assists are way up from last year. He has a 34 assist percentage versus 18.5% from last year. That's like pass rating wise, that's basically an 85 versus 65. So I bumped all his pass ratings up by about 10 points, as I think that's a pretty safe hedge moving forward, as assists are pretty stable as far as the statistic goes. So that buffed his overall by 3 points to a 78, and if he keeps playing at this level, that's only going to go up. He's probably going to be in the 80s by the end of the year, is my guess, and he started off at a 75 for me. And Colin Sexton, likewise, is on the upswing. He had his third straight 20-point game, he's averaging 27 points through the first 3 games, so he'll be the next Cav with some rating movement, most likely. So great start to the Cavaliers this season, as nobody expected them to start the year 3-0. So their fans have got to be pretty happy. Going over to the Celtics, their fans are not that happy, as the team's only 1-2. Jayson Tatum, he had 25 points, 11 rebounds, and 5 assists, and he finally got to the free throw line for the first time this year. He went 59 field goals without registering a free throw attempt, which is kind of historic for a player that was shooting as much, who's a focal point of an offense. Peyton Pritchard, he had 13 points on 5 of 5 from the field, including 3 threes. And Jeff Teague, he had 9 points in this game, but he was over 6 from the field. He was over 6 from the field, but he did make up for it by going 9 of 10 from the line, so at least he was getting to the line a good amount via his slashing ability to compensate for his erratic shooting. Going over to the Clippers, who got crushed by 50 points. They were without Kawhi. They were down an NBA record 50 points at halftime. They shot 4 of 33 on three-pointers. So when games like that happen, like box score and ratings wise, it's kind of a wash. You're not going to find much because, the starters end up not playing a substantial amount of minutes anyway. They just got crushed in like their 20 minutes that they were on the court. And then like the backups, like they don't really produce much statistically anyway. So really you're just looking at you're just trying to get clarity on the positions and stuff for the end of bench guys in those type of games. So Paul George, he went back down to earth with 15 points on 4 of 13 shooting. He'd started off well this year with 2 really good games, but obviously this one was a dud. Luke Kennard started in place of Kawhi. Mfiondu Kabengele, he was part of the garbage time unit. He played next to Daniel Oturo, so I switched his position to power forward as a result. And I also added Marcus Morris to my injury report. I typically try to avoid adding day-to-day players to my injury report, but in Morris' case, he missed all of the preseason. He hasn't practiced with the team, and he doesn't appear to have like a timetable. So even when he's ready to play again, he probably won't be at full speed. but realistically, like any player so far that hasn't played yet, I'm going to start adding these guys to the injury report, especially if there isn't any concrete information on when they're going to be returning. So going over to the Hornets, who upset the Nets to get their first win of the year. Gordon Hayward, he had 28 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists. He was 12 of 20 from the field. He was the best player in this game, against a team that had Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. So he's back at an all-star level. Through his first 3 games, he's averaging 23 points and 7 assists on 55% shooting. So his rating's definitely going to go up as long as he maintains this level. Probably going to be in like the 88, 89 range for much of the year is my guess. So going over to the Kings, they're 2-1. As De'Aaron Fox, he had a down game, only 12 points on 4 of 12 shooting, 4 assists and 5 turnovers. Tyrese Halliburton did his best to compensate with 15 points, 6 assists, no turnovers. He was 5 of 7 from the field, 3 of 4 on threes. So I'm going to have to bump his rating up a little bit from a 76. I think he's probably a little better than that. And going over to the Knicks, who, as we mentioned, blew out the Bucks. Alfred Payton had an explosion after his first 2 dismal games. And it was his best game as a Knick. He had 27 points, 7 assists, shot 12 of 16 from the field, and he was 3 of 3 on threes. His season high last year for threes was 2, and his season high for points last year was 20. So easily his best game as a Knick. And they needed that because, again, the point guard situation that they have is not great. They need him to have a lot more games like that. That might be the best game that he has all year, but here's hoping that is not the case and that his three-point shot is able to maintain. I'd love that 65 to become a 75, or even, I think a 75 is a reasonable, he's okay if he just has a respectable three-point shot. He doesn't need to be great. He just needs to be respectable to keep the defenses honest. So another player who had a good game against the Bucks is Julius Randle, who he had a good game in his previous game. So in this one, he had 29 points, 14 rebounds, and 7 assists. 8 of 17 from the field. He was 3 of 5 on threes and 10 of 11 from the free throw line. So 3 of 5 on threes. He was 2 for 2 in the last game, and we mentioned that he needs to be able to hit that shot in order to keep the defenses honest. So the Knicks got 6 of 8 three-point shooting from Julius Randle and Alfred Payton. I guess they're probably going to win a lot of games if those guys do that. If Randle and Payton are going to outplay Giannis and Drew Holiday, I guess you're going to win by 20 also. What a year 2020's been, right? Alec Burks, he had another super efficient game with 18 points, 5 assists on only 5 of 7 shooting in only 20 minutes. I really great pickup for the Knicks. I love that from the moment they signed him. He only makes $6 million on a 1-year deal. He's better than RJ Barrett, who bounced back and had like a relatively average game. I think he scored like 17 points on 17 shots. But Burks is like the sixth man that they've needed for a while. I'm pretty hyped about that. And Frank Ntilikina, he also had a good game. He finally got the backup point guard minutes and had 12 points on 4 of 4 3-point shooting, which ties his career high for 3 points made. So the Knicks got historic 3-point shooting out of Alfred Payton, Frank Ntilikina, and Julius Randle. Those 3 guys combined for 10 threes. And again, if they're going to hit 10 threes a game, the Knicks are probably going to win a lot more games than they normally would, right? But we'll see how any of that holds up. Though it is a good sign that they did this against a good defensive Bucks team, right? So going over to the Lakers, not a ton of notes. Anthony Davis sat out this game for rest purposes. And this was against the Timberwolves, who were without Karl Anthony Towns in this game. So Marc Gasol, he went off with 12 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists, 4 blocks, and he did all of that in only 21 minutes. He was 4 of 4 from the field, and 3 of those were threes. So he was picking on Naz Reid from the outset. The Timberwolves obviously don't have much in the way of size without Cat, so good to see Gasol can still do this when called upon, if necessary. And Kyle Kuzma, he started for AD, but I've still got his position as small forward, as that's where he's going to play when AD is healthy. And Talen Horton-Tucker had 12 points, 3 assists, 2 steals off the bench. So good to see him get a little bit of run. Going over to the Magic, they're also 3-0 still. Markelle Fultz, 26 points, only 2 assists, but he was 11 of 21 from the field, and he was 2 of 3 on threes. So he's another player that's trying to make a leap this year. I think this is his second consecutive 20-plus point game, so keeping an eye on that. His rating's probably going to go up this year, probably like 82-ish overall is what I would guess. And the Magic scored 130 points, so we can chalk that up to awful Wizards defense. They won the fourth quarter in their game, 43-19. The first unit got beat in the first and third quarters, but it was the second unit that bailed them out in the second and fourth. So guys like Cole Anthony, Michael Carter-Williams, and Terrence Ross are all playing really well at the moment. Going over to Dallas, they got their first win of the year. As we mentioned, they blew out the Clippers by 50. They had a standard game, though. They didn't dominate so much as the Clippers just didn't show up. Luka had 24 points, 9 rebounds, and 8 assists. Although I guess he did that in 26 minutes. So I guess that's an above-average game, right? As if he played 35 to 40 minutes, he would have had closer to like 40 points or something, my guess. But Josh Richardson and Tim Hardaway Jr., they combined for 39 points in, about 48 minutes between the two of them. And the closing lineup for garbage time was Tyrell Terry, Josh Green, Wes Iwundu, James Johnson, and Boban. So good to see that I had everybody at the proper position. Going over to the Nets, as they have some bad news. Aside from losing their game to the Hornets, Spencer Dinwiddie left the game with an injury. And we found out later that he tore his ACL. He's done for the year. So this is a huge blow to the team. I have him graded as the 11th best starting shooting guard in the league. And this puts additional pressure on the team to acquire James Harden or another shooting guard. But his injury also hurts their overall trade package. So that may not be possible now. As far as the game, Durant and Kyrie, they combined for 54 points on 19 of 32 shooting. They were 8 of 15 on threes. So, I mean, Durant's having like a borderline MVP caliber year. I don't think he's going to get it because they are going to play it carefully with him. He's not going to play the second night of back-to-backs, so he's not playing tomorrow. And I'm penciling Bruce Brown as the long-term starter beneficiary of Dinwiddie's injury, as the Nets probably prefer to keep LeVert in his six-man role. And although he'll probably start in games where Durant sits out due to rest, but in most other games when the two stars are healthy and playing, they're probably going to want to start somebody like Brown, who's low volume and his defense plays well with the starters. And the other alternatives besides Bruce Brown would be Landry Shamet, Tyler Johnson, and even Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot, who actually, in the short term, might actually be TLC who benefits, because he nearly shot the Nets back into the game in the fourth quarter of their game against the Hornets. So that might be fresh in coach's mind. We'll see. And going over to the Pacers, they're still 3-0. Victor Oladipo, he didn't play. He got a rest day, so Aaron Holiday got the start. Malcolm Brogdon was solid. He had 25 points on 11 of 20 shooting. He's averaging 21 points, 6 assists, and 54% shooting through the first 3 games, so his rating probably could stand to go up a point or two. Domantas Sabonis fell back down to earth with 19 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists, but he did hit 2 threes, so pretty good starts of the year for Sabonis. And Justin Holiday and Doug McDermott, they combined for 29 points on 11 of 19 shooting off the bench. So Pacers are a dangerous team. Don't sleep on them. Going over to the Pelicans, they dropped to 2-1. Or no, I think they go up to 2-1. Never mind. They won. They beat the Spurs. So Zion, he had 18 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists. And Brandon Ingram had 28 points, 11 rebounds, and 6 assists. Between the two of them, though, they only combined to shoot 16 of 45 from the field, but it was still enough to get the W. So that's a great sign. It means that the team is defending well. Lonzo Ball, he had 16 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, and 5 steals. Although Eric Bledsoe, he had another bad game with 7 points and 0 assists on 3 of 11 shooting. His rating is definitely going to drop if that continues. Probably shouldn't be an 86 to begin with, especially with the 2 consecutive bad games, right? The Pelicans, though, overall, they're going to get consistent play out of Ingram and Zion. They just need a third person to step up in each game, and they're going to have a high win rate as a result. So in this game, it was Lonzo. Maybe in the next game it'll be Bledsoe. In the next game it'll be Adams, or they'll get a big contribution from JJ Redick off the bench. You know, I'm not sleeping on the Pelicans. They're going to be a lot better than they were the prior season. And going over to the Spurs, don't sleep on them either, because DeMar DeRozan's playing well, although he fell back down to earth in this game with 8 points on 3 of 12 shooting, although he still had 10 assists, so he is the primary playmaker in the starting unit. Somebody whose rating's going to get tanked real soon, though, is Lamarcus Aldridge. He only had 4 points on 2 of 7 shooting. Through the first 3 games, he's only averaging 12 points on 42% shooting, so it's not looking great for him. He is 35, so his decline was going to happen at some point. And I think the team looks at Jakob Poeltl as the center of the future. So it wouldn't surprise me if the Spurs maybe held on to DeRozan but shipped Aldridge over to a contender or even bought him out after the All-Star break. Going over to the Suns. They're 2-1. CP3 had another low-scoring game with 8 points, but he added another 12 assists, and it's starting to look like maybe his statistical output will be more in line with what Ricky Rubio did last year. Time will tell, but that's now 2 substandard scoring games for Chris Paul with the Suns. Michael Bridges, he had 22 points. Cam Johnson, he had 21 points on 7 of 9 shooting, 3 of 4 on threes. And Frank Kaminsky, he had a revenge game against the Sacramento Kings. He had 11 points in 19 minutes in his season debut. Did that on 5 of 10 shooting. He was cut by the Kings in training camp, so good to see him get some burn and stick it to the team that didn't think he was worth a roster spot. And going over the Timberwolves, they lost their first game, but they had pretty dreadful news as Karl Anthony Towns dislocated his wrist, so he's considered week to week, which in my mind, first of all, if you're week to week, that implies that you're going to miss at least 2 weeks. So he may miss even more than that, and that would be devastating for the team, as similar to Joel Embiid, they don't have a replacement for him, you know, like the drop-off is substantial, you know, and it's really unfortunate because they played really well in their first 2 games. You know, all of the guards that they have in their backcourt, Russell, Rubio, Beasley, Edwards, they're able to play really well with Towns, and now they're going to face a lot more defensive pressure without having a quality role man to work with. So Naz Reid's going to start in his place for the next couple weeks. Maybe his rating will go up if he's able to produce in his absence, but otherwise, this is a pretty scary situation for the Timberwolves. I'm not really expecting much out of Ed Davis, and they're still not really getting anything out of. They already have the worst power forward situation in the league, so the Wolves are just going to be crossing their fingers and just hoping to hang in there. Going over to the Warriors, who got their first win of the year. Steph Curry, he had 36 points and 6 assists. As I've mentioned every single time we talked about the Warriors on this show, he was 11 of 25 from the field, 5 of 15 from 3, 9 of 9 from the free throw line. His shooting efficiency just isn't going to be there this year as defenses are focusing in on him without, especially if Draymond's not playing and they're not able to run the motion offense. Andrew Wiggins finally had a good game with 19 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, although the shooting was still a little subpar at 6 of 15 from the field, but they'll take it. But the Kelly Oubre Jr. nightmare continues. He had 8 points, although 11 rebounds and 4 steals, so he still was able to contribute, but he shot 3 of 16 from the field, and he was 0 of 6 on threes. So this is a historically bad slump for him. I think he's shooting like 17 or 18% from the field on the year. At some point, they may need to move him to the bench. He's been a sixth man previously in his career, and they might need to go to that. Damian Lee, he started at shooting guard last season, and he just hit the game-winning 3 in this game against the Bulls. So a change may come sooner than we think. We'll have to see. But they can't afford to get too many more duds out of Oubre. Something's got to give. And Juan Toscano Anderson, he started over Eric Pascal in this game. If you guys recall in the last episode that I talked about the Warriors, I changed Toscano's position live, and he started at power forward in this game. So it looks like that was a good call. As far as Pascal goes, he doesn't really make sense with the starters because he's a guy who needs the ball. He's a scorer and he's playing with all these other guys. So he moved to the bench, and that actually got him going. He had 15 points on 4 of 8 from the field and 6 of 7 from the line. So I think that change makes sense. And it also makes sense to have Toscano as a defensive role player type of guy. So at least they're getting that from him while he's starting for Draymond Green. And finally, we have the Washington Wizards, who are 0-3. Russell Westbrook was a DNP in this game for rest purposes. Raul Neto started in his place, and Neto had another good game. 22 points, 5 assists, and 3 steals, and he was 10 of 17 from the field. So this might I didn't check his stats, but this might be his career scoring game. He's probably never taken 17 shots in a game before either. So I've been critical of a triple point guard lineup that NATO has been part of, but the Wiz didn't go to that with Westbrook out, and go figure that he would have success without Westbrook, right? But the first unit, they played well between NATO, Beal, etc. But the second unit, they just don't have any depth right now as they're dealing with a lot of injuries. And Bradley Beal, he had 29 points and 7 assists, but he also only shot 10 of 29 from the field, and he was 0 for 7 on threes. So substandard shooting game for him is unfortunately why they lost. But his assists were up with Westbrook out, and we mentioned that they were down while Westbrook was playing. So on games where Westbrook is out, or if Westbrook misses any extended time, we'll probably see Beal's assist rate go up. But that wraps it up for this edition of the 2K roster review. If you like this content, like this video, leave a comment, as I'm definitely looking for feedback on how to make the series better, and subscribe to my channel so that you won't miss any of these shows moving forward. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.